Hello and welcome to a quest that became legend. This is the first 30 minutes of gameplay. The game is currently in alpha testing, so everything you see may be subject to change. But let's just get started. First, you have to create a party of 4 heroes. You can choose between 4 classes: Warrior, Sorcerer, Ranger and Shaman. 2 more classes might be added later, but that has not been completely decided upon. There are 6 main attributes: strength, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity and speed. These will have an impact on your character's stats. You can hold the mouse over every stat to see what it does. Once you're done dealing out your attribute points, you can click next. Every character can choose 3 starting abilities. These abilities will also impact what items and spells your characters will start with. What abilities your characters can choose to start with depends on the character class. Some abilities cannot be chosen as start abilities, but can only be learned within the game world. Welcome to Mekairida. This is where your journey begins. Mekairida is one of 8 different worlds. The game also includes a lot of different instances like caves and temples, so there's a lot of different environments to explore. The 3 starting abilities that every class chooses are a part of what's called common skills. Common skills can be learned by every class in the game, but not every class can reach the maximum level within the skill. This is your skill and spell book. The first bookmark always shows the character's specific skills. These skills can only be obtained by the specific classes, whereas spells can be learned by every class, but is limited to the maximum level that the character can learn within a specific school of magic. Skills cost no mana but have a cooldown period. Spells have no cooldown periods but cost mana. The quest journal keeps track of every quest you have obtained, both main quests and side quests. Right now, we're heading towards a nearby village where our adventure-hungry party has heard that there might be a bounty out for some troublesome goblins. Mekairida is a big world and it's easy to get lost, but luckily the village has already been marked on our map. When in close vicinity of enemies, the game changes from real-time to turn-based. What characters get their turns first depends on the character's initiative. Right now, all our characters have one action point, which means they can make one action per turn, but it is possible to obtain more action points. The party shares move points, and each round the party can move a total of 6 meters. We made it to the village and completed our first quest by finding the information about the bounty on the goblins. We also obtained our first level up. On level up, a character will receive 5 ability points. Also, on every second level, the character will receive a skill point that can be used in the character-specific skill tree. The skill tree is divided into different segments, where the last line always contains 3 skills that can either be used actively or are a passive skill. The village is populated with different kinds of NPCs that offers us everything from training to trade and will also give us different kinds of quests. This NPC right here offers to train us in the skill called Hunter. Hunter is a very useful skill that allows us to see different kinds of information about our enemies, such as how much life they have left. Sadly, we don't have the gold right now to receive the training. There are a lot of teleports placed throughout the worlds, which allows us to fast travel between the places we have discovered. Right now we only know the location of one teleport, which means we don't really have any places to teleport to. Also, the teleports have been deactivated and we need a special kind of magical crystal to activate them. We just received our first side quest, and also the location has been marked on our map. We're of course completely free to choose if we want to start to continue on our main quest or if we want to go for the side quest first. A quest that became legend has an open world and we can go wherever we choose to. This also means that we might run into some areas that we're not strong enough to proceed through, or we might receive quests that we are not strong enough to complete just yet. In such a case, we'll have to go and complete some other quests first, or maybe just go out and kill some monsters so we can level up our party. When a character receives a buff or a debuff, a green or a red icon will appear on the character picture. Clicking this icon will show what the character is affected by. And holding the mouse over the name of the buff or debuff will show how that buff or debuff affects the character. When not in combat, characters' health and mana will slowly regenerate. Some classes are also able to select skills that will make them regenerate mana or health each turn. It's always a good idea to wait until your characters have fully healed to begin the next battle, but of course, what you choose to do is totally up to you. Choosing Fire Magic as a starting ability will grant you the Fire Bolt. The Fire Bolt is a high damage and high range spell. Had one of our characters chosen Arcane Magic as a starting ability, that character would have started with the spell Arcane Bolt. Arcane Bolt is also a high range spell, but does less damage than the Fire Bolt. But it also costs less mana to cast, which can be an advantage in some situations. Shockwave is the starting spell for wind magic. It deals less damage than Firebolt or Arcane Bolt and has a shorter range, but it can hit multiple targets at once. The dirt mine can be laid on the ground so that enemies walk into it and take damage. But it can also be used in situations where the enemies have grouped together, because the mine does area damage, so this is an ideal situation to use it in. If a character chooses Earth Magic as a starting ability, they will be given the Dirt Mine spell at start. Otherwise, it can be purchased or found as loot as every other spell. Choosing Water Magic will grant the character a spell called Soaking Pain, which deals damage over time. And Healing Magic will grant the character the spell Minor Healing. These are all first level spells, and they require the character to have that school of magic at least level 1. This can be obtained by selecting the ability at start or finding a trainer in the game world that can teach the character that specific school of magic. Learning a school of magic in-game at a trainer will not grant you a starting spell. You will have to find or buy your spells in the game world. If combat takes too long, your characters may experience battle fatigue. How many rounds it takes before a character experiences battle fatigue depends on the stat that's called combat energy. When a character is hit by battle fatigue, their attribute points will decrease by 20%. How much combat energy a character has is determined by their constitution, and some items may also increase the stat. It might be a good idea to level up our party just one more time before we go into the Goblin Cave. But this demonstration is coming up on a half hour and soon to be finished, so let's just go inside and see what happens. We have arrived inside the Goblin Cave. Now we need to slay every goblin inside the cave to complete our quest. When that's done, we will receive a quest update telling us that every goblin has been taken care of and that we can now return to the village to collect our reward. And if we're lucky, we might find a chest or two with some nice items that we can use for our party. In a quest that became legend, it's always a good idea to keep your eyes open for all kinds of loot objects like chests and bone piles. They are scattered all throughout the game world, and some are more easy to find than others. You can always use the highlight key, and just like active enemies will highlight when you use it, it will also highlight nearby lootable objects. Alternatively, you can use a spell called Eye in the Sky, which belongs to the school of wind magic, and it will automatically highlight every lootable object within a certain vicinity of the player party. So this was a quest that became legend, the first 30 minutes of gameplay in the alpha version. I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. If you did, you can always follow the game development on Twitter. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you again in the future.